Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. Some things have come up recently for me that made me realize how important exploration of the world around me and just expanding my world is in my recovery, and how, if I look back at my time in addiction, uh, it's you can see the world slowly closing in around me throughout that period. And what I mean by that is, as I became further and further entrenched in my addiction, my social circle started to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and the amount of time that I spent with friends got smaller and smaller and smaller. The things that I was interested in got less and less and fewer. So, I only became interested in certain types of books and movies and certain types of music, and I didn't expand outside of that much. The things that I did on a daily basis became very similar to each other. I didn't deviate too much outside of what I did on a daily basis. It was always the same thing, day in, day out. In recovery, I found that my world is doing the opposite. It's expanding. So as time goes on, more and more people start being added to my group of friends, my recovery family, my tribe. It gets bigger and bigger. The things that I'm interested in also start to expand, and the things that I'm willing to do also expand. So I find myself doing things socially on my own, and even in things as simple as listening to music that I wouldn't really have spent time listening to previously. And these may seem like some inconsequential things, but I think it is an important aspect of recovery, that if we're really in an exploratory mode in recovery, we see our worlds expanding around us. We see the world getting bigger and bigger and bigger. By doing that, we open ourselves up to the idea of change. And change in and of itself is a very important part of living a healthy and happy life in recovery. Change is one of the few guarantees in life. It is going to happen. And a lot of times in my addiction, I found myself so adamant that life not change, that I would do everything I could to protect my current state of life, because I had such a huge fear of change. Once we get rid of that fear, or at least start to tamp it down a little bit, we can start to see this expansion of the world that we're in. And that gives us more room to move and more room to explore. And the more that we explore, the more connected we can be with the person that we've been all along, but we've just forgotten about because we were so busy trying to protect the little world we had built for ourselves. It's a lot easier to protect a little world and to maintain a little world than it is to open yourself up to expansion of your world, to being willing to change and to move and to do things differently. So I think that's really important. And the reason this came up for me is just that recently I have felt stuck in recovery, and I look back on, I'm very young in my recovery. I've got just a little over a year and a half. And I look back over that time, and the times that I felt stuck, those were times where I started trying to protect my little world again. I kind of got stuck in the things that I was doing, the rhythm of life, And those were times where I needed to let go and look for opportunities to change. Doesn't have to be big changes. Even something as different as starting to, I got in these habits and these schedules where every day after work, I would go and sit and play the piano for a while. Well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But I got in a rut. I was doing that every day. And then I started finding myself compelled to do that every day. And then when something came up that didn't allow me to do that, I started to feel like my way of life was being threatened. And it's like, no, I've got to be flexible and I've got to be willing to explore different things. And so what I've started to do is some days, instead of going to do that, I go and sit down and read a little bit. Still a healthy habit, still something that is worthwhile, worth doing, but it just changes things a little bit. And that little bit of change can have a ripple effect that goes out and helps you be more comfortable with the ever expanding world around you, which is really what you want. You want your world to just continue to grow. The more room you have in the world, the more room you have to love, to be loved, to care for others, to share with others, to bring people into your circle. That's what we want out of recovery. But if we get into the same habits, we find ourselves going back into this protective mode. And that's where I was for a little bit. I was trying to protect the little world that I had built in recovery instead of trying to expand it and being willing to let go and just expand it a little bit. So that's the important thing about change. That's why change has been important to me. Not just the major changes that I've had to make in my life for recovery, but also the small things every now and then to break myself out of my own habits and get myself into a place where I can be willing to let the world expand around me without trying to control it and rein it in to help myself feel safe. That's all I got for today. Hope you have a great day, and I'll be back here tomorrow with more.